First, I want to just thank Dr. Timothy Park, who invited me to be here. We were together last September at Fuller to award Dr. Bobby Clinton with a Lifetime of Service Award. I also want to just mention that Marv Newell is here. Marv, could you just stand up for me? Where are you? There he is, right here. Some of you know Marv. And it's my great privilege to have Marv on my team. And he's a former leader of one of the two merged organizations. And he's a great mentor and a friend and a colleague. So thanks, Marv. Well, about 2 or 3 years ago, two of my boys and I, we rode bicycles from New Orleans, which is in the very southern part of America, all the way up to Minnesota, which is where I'm from. It's about 2,200 kilometers. And it took us about 30 days to do that. And we rode the bikes along the Mississippi River every day. And we got to see firsthand what happens when people upstream put things into the river to those who lived downstream on the river, right? You begin to care a lot about what happens upstream when you live downstream. Well, global mission can be said to live downstream from the church. And what happens in the church makes its way to global mission, right? Another truth is that what happens in global mission lives upstream from the church. The opposite is true too, right? What happens in global mission affects the church. Well, in a minute we're going to talk about what's happening in the U.S. church and the Canadian church and how that's affecting mission. But first let me just tell you that Missio NEXUS has about 265 agency or organization members, around 300 to 350, maybe more churches. And we don't really have firm numbers, but it could be anywhere from 20 to 30,000 global workers are represented in those organizations and entities. Now, I don't know if we got the video ready to go or not, but if we do, could we roll that video? So that's a little introduction video that we share with people, but it talks about the ways that we try to get these organizations and churches working together through relationships, shared learning. We try to challenge them with interesting ideas and innovation in mission. We are hoping to work to more and more collaborative action in the future, and also we like to advocate in the North American Church for the Great Commission. So I took over just this past year in June, and one of the things that immediately we had to face was we had some financial difficulties in our association. When the merger happened, they changed the membership model and how they were paying for things. And so one of my first tasks has been to try to change or try to recover the organization into a more sustainable model. We've also opened up our membership to churches. Traditionally, the IFMA and EFMA were just mission agencies, but we all know that there's now very large churches doing significant mission work, and so we now have many churches in our membership. We're doing a lot to set a new foundation for the future. There's a new website, a private social network, face-to-face events, just all sorts of things that we're implementing right now. Kind of almost feels like we're in a startup phase. Let me tell you a few things that are happening in the North American context that might interest you. First of all, the church in North America, as you probably know, is under pretty serious and severe assault from secular forces. And I think it's really hard to envision how fast that change has happened. Even just in the last 3 or 4 years, the cultural changes in America in some ways have caught the church, and hence the Great Commission, a little bit by surprise. Another thing that's going on in North America is the church is bigger and smaller at the same time. By that I mean the big churches are growing, and there's a lot more big churches. The number of mega churches today far outweighs what it was 5 or 10 years ago. It's doubling about every year right now. At the same time, there's been an awesome and fantastic push for new church planting in America. If you were just to drive through my little neighborhood in Orlando, I live in Orlando, Florida, on a Sunday morning, one morning my wife and I counted advertisements for 10 new churches just in the little mile or two right around our house. So there's a lot of new little churches happening as well. So mission agencies are trying to figure out how do they relate well to big churches, and how do they help and resource as well these little churches that are growing all over the place. Another challenge, of course, is the one we're talking about in this conference, and that's globalization. It might surprise you to know that about 16% of Americans do not speak English as their primary language at home. That's about 40 million people. And the immigration push in America continues to just get more and more steam. And we are definitely an immigrant country. Now that presents a lot of opportunities for mission. One agency that I'm aware of has a ministry training missionaries in New York City, and they make the promise that you can come to New York City and you can train on how to reach the people group you eventually might live among overseas. And I've challenged them a few times with some very small people groups, thinking there's no way they're going to know people from this people group, but they do. It's just so many people groups mixed into New York City. They're using it as a mission training ground. Finally, there's the changing role for American and Canadian missionaries as we work with partners like you globally. A lot of missionary recruitment focuses on pioneering work, and the image we get is the missionary who goes in there and makes it all happen from the beginning. But more and more now, we need missionaries who are going with a partnership mentality from the very beginning. And so that challenges the North American missions movement to think a little bit differently on how to prepare and get ready to send missionaries. You know, you may have heard that, that the North American mission movement is on the wane or in decline. I'm just going to tell you right now, I think that's a false picture of what's happening in North America. I recently saw a report of mission giving year over year from last year to this year, and it's increased about 1.5%. Now, that might not sound like a lot, but in fact, it's a lot of money when you think about how much money is coming out of America to resource the global church. And my personal view is we actually don't have good data on what's happening because there's all sorts of new ways of sending missionaries, from marketplace missions to church-based missions, etc. So I actually think the future for mission sending, mission supporting, mission training in the U.S. has a bright future, and I look forward to seeing what happens. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. Since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. And we invite you to continue to pray for the North American mission movement.